Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews, and to a somewhat unplanned video. There's a dog behind the camera, she's being a pain. We're just rolling with it because I have motivation and I need to do this. So, this was meant to be a sewing video, because it's one of my six sewing projects for the year. Stuff went wrong. I lost the memory card that had a lot of the footage on it for what was going to be the video, and also I've realised that I do not have the time or energy to do a full sewing project right now. It's just not sensible. And I'm trying to be a bit more sensible with my schedule at the moment. So instead, I thought we would go on a bit of a Judith sewing retrospective, and I braved the outside world. I did try and film inside, but our house gets very little natural light and I looked like I was filming inside a bright yellow cavern. So I braved the outside. I went and stood in our little back garden and hoped against hope that all of the neighbours were not working from home anymore, so no one could see me. And I filmed some little clips of like full body shots of stuff, and I want to take you through everything that I have made so far on my sewing, learning, I hate the word journey, but journey. I'm very much still, I would describe myself as like a confident beginner. I've been sewing for must be coming up for about 2 years now, I think. And it's one of those things you never really stop learning. There's heaps of stuff in sewing I still don't know how to do, and I'm still kind of making it up as I go along. I've had no professional training whatsoever. None of this is advice, none of this is a tutorial. I just sort of wanted to celebrate everything I've managed to do. I have this like huge pile of stuff that I made, and I want to pull it out and tell you about it, and maybe go through some of the things I really like and some of the things I don't like, and motivate myself to fix some of the things that are broken. Let's go. I'm going to go in chronological order, which does mean rooting through this pile. One of the other things you should know about me is while I will happily press my seams when sewing, I do not iron otherwise, which is someone who wears a lot of linen and sews with a lot of natural materials. It does make everything look much scruffier than it probably should do, but I'm not changing that about myself to pretend in a video. We're being very honest here. This is the first proper wearable-ish garment that I ever sewed, and it is my grey smock dress. Was completely, I'm going to say self-drafted. It is rectangles. Let's not get it twisted. And I chose this light grey fabric. What I really wanted, and what I could actually make now, I think, was this big oversized smock dress, and I wanted it to have like enormous checks, but I couldn't find a fabric that wasn't thousands and thousands of pounds and technically made to be sofa fabric that did that. So I bought this gorgeous linen, it's lovely, and I made this smock dress. This is probably my self-sewn garment that I've worn the most, because when I used to go running, which I must start to do again, but I have not done in a while, but when I used to go running, I would put this on after my shower, but before I got back into like human clothes for work. And so I wore it a lot. It's got a lot of wear, and Katie refers to it as my tea towel dress because it is made out of essentially tea towel fabric. And I really like it. There's a lot of stuff I really like. I had never done bias binding before. I'd never done most of this before, but this is bias binding, and there are bits where it's coming apart, but it's been through the wash a fair few times. If I made it again now, which we will come on to, it would be much better. But as a first thing that I still use and wear, very impressed. We're making a whole new pile. Getting a bit muddy in the chronology now, but after that I think I made this navy blue jacket, coat. What else could we describe it as? It's technically also a wrap dress. It was my first time ever doing this kind of shawl collar, I guess. I really like the shape of this, and I liked making it a lot. I will link patterns where I have patterns for things below. And the pattern company for this, they like teach you what you're learning how to do, which a lot of the commercial pattern companies don't. It'll just be like, you need to do this, and it doesn't say, and that is what it means to do a French seam, for example, which there are. I believe there are some French seams in here. There's some flat felled seams, I can see those, and I didn't know what those things were until I made this garment. So even though I don't really wear it, and I think I need to just dye it to black, because I think it's possibly because it's navy that I don't wear it super often. I say that wearing navy now, but like this is just it's a bit of a dull colour compared to, do you know? I need to decide what I want to do with it. Is it a pirate coat that's going into some costume stash? Am I going to wear it? Will I ever wear a linen jacket? I don't know, but I very much, the process was really useful for this one. Now we're into the territory of, I tend to, when I'm making something that I'm not super confident in, and I know the vision I have in my mind for what I want to wear, but I don't know how to get there yet, and I want to make sure I'm going to get it right, I tend to make it 3 times. I'll make a very, very hodgepodge mock-up where I try and make all the mistakes. I make a second one, which tends to be wearable, where I make the mistakes I didn't make in the first one, and then I make it a third time and it tends to be pretty okay. That seems to be how it's going. So I decided I wanted to make a kind of cottagecore dress similar to one in a Sew Steam video that I will link below, and so I used her tutorial and the pattern that she used, And the first thing I made was a blouse in that pattern, and it didn't fit me very well, and I haven't kept it. I've put it in a bag somewhere because I want to like salvage the fabric and turn it into hankies or something. But then the second one I made was in this cotton fabric, and it looks like this, and I'll cut in the footage where I actually am wearing it. I like a lot of things about this. I think you can really tell this is an early sewing project because there's just a lot of fails in it. Like, I added some space for the buttons, but then didn't sort out the necklines, so the neckline's just a mess on the inside. The lining is hand sewn in, which I'm very impressed with myself for doing, because I would have thought I'd be too lazy, but apparently I was not. It's not quite right. The sleeves are wrong, so they get stuck on my arms, which I find sensorily is not very pleasant for me. So yeah, and the buttons are too big. They don't balance with it. But I do like the buttons. They're just too big and the buttonholes are a mess. And I sewed a straight piece of fabric to the bottom of a circle skirt, which you shouldn't do because it's not how grains of fabric work. There's just a lot of things in this where I can look at it and be like, rookie errors. And again, I will probably take this apart and do something else with it. This is probably the thing I wear second most, and this is the third iteration of that dress. And it's currently inside out, but I call this my teddy bear fabric dress because something about it just says teddy bear to me. I got the sleeve band right, so the arms work, which I really enjoy. The buttons are mismatched, which I think is pretty cute. This trim didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, but actually the more I've washed it, the more I like it. Like, it's got much more subtle, which I appreciate. Do I think this is going to last forever and never need to be repaired because the seams are so great? Absolutely not. Like, there's definitely some bits that are questionable sewing methods used, but I think overall it's really nice. It would be even nicer if I could be bothered to iron, but I can't. The one big error I made with this is the white version of the dress. I say white, cream off-white version of the dress. I put in one pocket, and it is a circle, because I thought circle pockets would be so cute, but turns out there's a reason they don't make things with circle pockets. Or maybe they do, but they just make them better than whatever this is. So then I was like, okay, right, I want to put inseam pockets in. So where the seam goes, your hands go in, like a normal dress has pockets. But for some reason, I put them really low down. So when you put your hands in your pockets, you have to kind of squat. I'll insert the footage. It's bizarre. I could fix that. I don't want to take the dress apart yet. We'll wait till there is something that needs repairing. But this really does feel like a dress that I understand its construction and I could repair it if I needed to. Which is actually a big thing I've learned with sewing my own clothes, is when you understand how something is put together, you're much more confident in, if this breaks, I could fix it. Whereas I have some garments that I'm like, I don't even know how I would begin to fix you because I couldn't take it apart and put it back together again, you know? I have another semi-fail, slight fail, learning experience. This green linen dress, originally to wear for a friend's wedding, and I really wanted to wear it, and I was like, I had this vision of me as like this green, kind of ethereal, I wanted to have like a headband made of moss, it was going to be amazing. I didn't have enough time, and also I didn't end up wearing this dress just because, I think, again, just some rookie errors were made. I didn't make a mock-up for this, and I should have done. I'm really bad at princess seams, which are these curved seams here. I'm not very good at them, and just a bunch of stuff kind of went a bit wrong, and I lined it with fabric, but that fabric is too heavy, so it doesn't sit right. It's a little bit too big. It's bedsheet fabric on the inside. Just a lot of things that I'm like, oh, this had potential, and it still does. It was my first ever invisible zip, and the invisible zip is not horrendous. It's not great, and I've put it on and off like 3 times to make this video, and it's already slightly disintegrating, but there's potential here. There's potential, and I like the sleeves. The sleeves actually came out really cute. I might steal that sleeve pattern for something else. Again, it's also just not quite the right colour that I was envisioning, which is why the thread doesn't quite match. I'm not disappointed in myself because, again, I learned a huge amount making this, particularly about zips and why I hate them. I don't wear it except as like a layering piece. It's quite good under things because it has so much body to it that it can flare out a skirt. There's a few things in the middle that I made that I then gave to other people, like the dragon skirt that I made a video for. I made a dress for a friend, which I was really, really proud of. It's probably one of the best finished things I've ever made. The next thing I made for myself, I really regret this fabric choice because it picks up fluff like nobody's business. And in a house with a fluffy dog and 2 people with slightly long hair, it just doesn't work. But these are my 18th century stays. Which is kind of like the precursor to the corset, I guess. These made using a red threaded pattern, which I will link below, and it really felt like I leveled up my sewing for this. Pretty sure this pattern said, like, this is for intermediate to, like, expert sewists, like, you need to be able to sew to do this. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I qualify. But I did qualify. I made them and I wear them. This is probably the third most worn thing. Like, you can see where it goes out where my tummy is. I like these a lot. Again, if I were doing them again now, they would be better, and I know that because I've made that pattern since, which is what we'll come on to next. I really like these. They're a great layering piece, and I have in fact worn them as a bra, instead of a bra, I should say, because I didn't have, like, everything was in the wash. I can't even remember the situation, but it worked out well. It was comfortable for the day, which I was very pleased with. I should say I do have a black shoelace that I used to lace some of these, but I couldn't find it for this video, so it looks a little bit like Converse's because I'm using a white shoelace. It looks much nicer with a black one. So then we move on to my latest project, and the project that was meant to be this video, which is I wanted to make, and I will make it, just not for this, a Belle-inspired dress, because I have this light blue linen that's just stunningly gorgeous. And so I wanted to make it like a corset top based on that pattern and adapting it slightly, which I've not done very much of, so I was very excited to do some pattern adaptation. So I made my first of my 3 versions of this, which is this little corset top, which actually I'm really pleased with. It's a little bit big, it gapes a little bit at the front, but it was a really good, first, a reminder of the stays pattern because I hadn't used it in about a year, and also just a really good learning curve for stuff like, I used my overlocker or my serger for the first time on bits of it, and learning how to do that, and deciding how many eyelet holes I needed and all that stuff. And also it came out really cute. I need to re-sew some of it. A couple of the bits of the bias binding aren't sewn on very well because it was also my first time properly making my own bias binding, and I've cracked that code now, but I hadn't when I made this. And then the second version of that is this, which looks much nicer on it. It looks like a pile of red fabric here. But this is that with the skirt attached. And what I have attached the skirt with is cartridge pleats, which is basically a way of gathering a huge amount of fabric down into a really small amount of fabric. So it's not going to be able to focus on it. But just here, the little cartridge pleats, and it took forever and destroyed my hands, which is another reason I'm not making the final product yet. But it came out really pretty. I think I slightly regret not putting more bones into this, and when I do the final thing, I will add more bones. But I'm possibly making that as separates anyway, so it's fine. This is one of the projects I'm most proud of for, I could see it in my head, but I didn't really have any guidance to follow beyond a couple of YouTube videos of people doing vaguely similar things. I still need to hem it. This is still a somewhat unfinished hem, but it's so close to being done and this video needed to be made. I wanted to tell you about it. I'm really pleased with it. It's nice. It just needs some finishing touches. And the last thing is actually what I'm wearing right now. This is a smock dress, and I think it's nice to do this, I guess, like sewing retrospective, because the first thing I made was that smock dress, and then I made this, which was because I got invited to go to London for like a semi-fancy thing, very semi-fancy, with my mum and my dad, and I didn't have anything to wear because pandemic weight gain. It's a thing, it's fine. And I needed something to wear, and I was kind of like, I wonder if I could turn that blue, it's linen cotton, I wonder if I can turn that into a dress in time. And about 4 o'clock on a Friday, having washed the fabric, I started, and by 9 p.m. on that Friday I had finished. And a lot of that is because I have the overlocker, so finishing seams is slightly easier, but just like, this is a thing. This is so wearable. You could buy this. You shouldn't, because it would cost you a ridiculous amount of money for a dress that you could probably get much cheaper. I would happily sell this to someone. I would give this to a friend as like a, hey, this is a functional garment that won't implode when you try and wash it. And for me, it was a real sign of like, that original smock dress probably took me 3 days to a week to make, and like all of the planning and all of the mistakes I made, and admittedly a lot more hand sewing because I have tools that I didn't have before, but it really felt like a true, oh, I've come this far, and measurable success that isn't to do with numbers or money is something that I find really hard to grasp in the world. Oh, you can tell I've just filmed this video. I'll leave it up for continuity's sake. Yeah, it's something that I don't get very often, and so to have that in this project was really, really nice. Like, this involved gathering, which I used to suck at, which is why the original smock dress is pleated, bias binding, which I still kind of suck at, but it worked and it was nice and easy and fun and I did it. And if I was making something with a zip, they still come out a little bit off, I'll confess. But that's my next project, is going to be something with a zip in, I think, because I should probably figure that out at some point. If you're the kind of person who'd really love to learn to sew, I am a big advocate for just going for it, and being aware that you're gonna have a lot of fails along the way. It's just one of those hobbies that has that in it, and obviously that can be very expensive, and sewing is already an expensive hobby. I would say maybe if I could go back and talk to myself, and admittedly if it weren't a pandemic, I would say something along the lines of, rather than investing loads of money into fabric and patterns, which I don't spend a huge amount of money on fabric. I buy a lot of my fabric dead stock, which is kind of like vintagey, second-handy kind of thing. Don't spend that money yet, or maybe half that money, or save up and take a proper class. And a lot of places now do sewing machine courses and sewing lessons and all that stuff. I did know how to sew before I started properly learning to sew garments. My mum taught me how to use a sewing machine. I wasn't like nervous about that aspect of it, but a lot of the technical vocabulary and the techniques and stuff, I think would be better taught to you by someone who can speak to you and to whom you can ask questions. There's heaps you can learn on the internet, and obviously that's where I've picked up everything, but I think if I could at the beginning have said, what does this mean, it would have been very helpful. Or am I actually doing this right? I don't know. Or if there are any other hobbies, I think similarly I'm really come around to the idea of like, it is better to take a class in something first than to buy all of the supplies and try and do it over a weekend, get annoyed and fail, which is definitely not what happened when I tried to learn needle felting. It's fine. I hope this has been enjoyable. I really liked going through this pile of stuff, even though filming it was excruciating, and I hope my neighbours didn't see me. Please say they didn't see me. I'd be really interested to know if you have any crafty hobbies. Are you a knitter? Are you a textile person? Are you a painter? Well, let me know. I have a dedicated crafting channel in my Discord, which you can go and see if you would like. It'd be very nice. Let me know all of those things down in the comments below. I know this hasn't been at all book related, but I used to slot my sewing into reading vlogs, and now I can't do that anymore. But since we are going to have a review up for Lake Law at some point this week, either before now or after now, I figure there's been plenty of bookish content this week. We can have a bit of a break and talk about some sewing. Because also, I guess, to throw in one bookish thing, I find audiobooks great for when I'm sewing, but you do have to wear headphones because else the sewing machine is too loud. Will that do? Will that make this relevant to this channel? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I'm hoping to do something very similar again, maybe next year, maybe the year after, just to talk about all the things I've managed to make. And there will be another sewing project in a couple of months. I just need to screw my head on straight again and get my head in gear. All of the metaphors. Bye.
There's gonna be some bloopers now.
You are a menace, and I've just fed you, and you should behave. I'm just looking at my work laptop and checking no one's phoning me. It's lunchtime, they shouldn't be.